Yep. Inside, I want to kill myself. We are on an 0-7 run over the last 2 days. After tonight was just complete bullshit. So that's how I'm going to start off this show. Horrible Sunday, 1-5. I don't even know what to tell you about that. I just don't want to do this anymore. I have never seen anything like this, man. With the slump continuing, 2 straight losses, not a good day at all. 0-4. I just have not had a good season, man. What can this slump that I'm on? The slump continues. I've reached a new peak, actually. I'm going to burn my Bruins hat, man. I don't know what is going on with the Bruins. March 8th, is that what it is? I don't even know. It's March 9th, I think. Who even knows, man? I don't know what day it is anymore. I don't even know what day it is anymore, man. Back with you after the worst day that I could possibly have. Back with you, as I always am. Until I die, at least. 0-2 yesterday, and yesterday did not go well for me. 0-5. The worst month that I've ever had in my 18 years doing this. I don't know what to even tell you about this anymore. Broke the slump yesterday as the slump discontinues. The slump continues. Somebody fucking kill me, please. I don't even know what I should do at this point other than potentially end it all. What's up, everybody? It's Toad back with you with Toad Stool Sports. Wednesday, February 11th, 3-0, sweep on the show yesterday. Started out, we had Miami with the win. They pretty much were leading for, I don't know, most of the game, I think, as far as I saw. I watched the end of it. They were able to put it away. Good win for Miami in that one. We got the win in the other college basketball game late, which got a little bit dicey, and it probably shouldn't have, because Pittsburgh, I think they almost had a wire-to-wire cover in that one. I think they were only down 5-7 points with less than 10 minutes to go, and then all of a sudden Duke was covering. I don't know what was going on with that, and Pittsburgh did wind up falling on the right side of it. You could have found 17.5 when the game went off on that, but they covered the 16.5 too, losing by 16. I don't think it should have even been that close to a failure. Pittsburgh should not have been even that close to failing to cover, is what I mean to say. That should have been a much easier cover for them. Duke did not put up that many points in the game. I think it was the right side regardless. And then we got an outright win with the Indiana Pacers as a huge underdog. The game wound up going to overtime, maybe even double overtime, and they got the win. I didn't care that much about the outright win, but anytime you have one of these underdogs, I'm recommending, you put a little bit of money on the money line, and then that would have hit for a nice little extra on that one. So we got that one right as well. It was a bad spot for the Knicks. I have no voice. I don't know how I'm going to do this. It took me a while to handicap all this stuff. I was just handicapping today for over an hour. We have a lot of college basketball. We have a huge NBA board today. And NBA, I don't know. I find a higher percentage of spots. So I'm going to have 3 college basketball plays and 4 NBA plays. And I was considering only having 1 college basketball play, but I'm like, I don't know. I guess maybe I'm not being selective enough here, but we're going to have 7 plays today. Dirty Sock, what's up? Yes, thank you, sir. All right. Let's do it. Let's get into this. Hopefully I can get this show done and not take that long with it. College basketball action starting at 6 p.m. Big Ten action, Fox Sports 1, Iowa at Maryland. I don't love this game. Iowa, it's a little bit of a weird travel spot for Iowa and a third road game in 4 games, which I don't love. But they are coming off a close call against Northwestern. Northwestern, as I keep saying, they're a bit of an underrated team. I don't think they're as bad as their record looks. Iowa does play a lot of these slow pace, low scoring games. But you do have a situation where Iowa barely got by Northwestern. So a lot of times the big favorite that almost loses will actually show up with focus in the next game. However, they already beat Maryland by 19 points in Iowa way back before official conference play started. And they have Purdue and Nebraska on deck. So there are some things to not like about this Iowa spot. Although if you just look at what these teams did in their prior game, then Iowa kind of makes sense as a side. But if you expand out a little bit and look at the schedule, I don't think that it makes as much sense. Maryland just also, Maryland just pulled off an upset of Minnesota. But they did break a losing streak. And this Maryland team, I just don't really think they could really overlook anybody the way that they're sitting right now. And that win did break a losing streak for them, so that might actually be a good thing and propel them forward. Although technically, like I was saying, Maryland is coming off a pretty big upset. Iowa's coming off almost losing as a big favorite. So just those two things alone, I'd be looking towards Iowa here. But everything else about the spot, I can't do it because Iowa might not take Maryland seriously. Weird travel spot. Again, they already beat Maryland, so that's why they might not take them seriously. Another reason why they might not. And Iowa has bigger games on deck. So this is a game, I can't do anything with the game from a side perspective. The money is coming in on Maryland to some extent. Iowa down from 11 to 10.5. 52% of tickets, 58% of the cash on Maryland. It's expected to be slow because that's what Iowa does. Total in the 140s, low 140s. I guess I will agree and lean towards Maryland plus the points, but it's like almost an impossible game to look at from a side perspective, so I'm not doing anything with that. Kyle, what's up? I thought you were just calling me Frog. Oh, I don't know how the emojis work, man. I don't do much with the I'm usually not in the comments section. I also realized I did not have my plus gain on my mic yesterday, so my mic was really low. But I think that, I don't know, I might have to go, listen to what my mic actually sounds like. Am I too loud now? I don't know. Hold on. Might turn it down slightly. I don't know. All right. Spending too much time talking about one game here, man. Whew. All right. Colgate at Holy Cross. This game, as I already talked about with Navy the other day and took a loss, fading them. So that was great. Colgate could be looking ahead to Navy here, man. That's going to be a big game. Colgate versus Navy is going to have some ramifications as far as who's leading the Patriot League. It'll still be Navy, but Colgate, they really need that game against Navy to stay in the regular season race. So that's going to be a huge game. So they might look past Holy Cross. However, Colgate they didn't do well against Holy Cross the other time they played, and that wasn't that long ago. They hosted Holy Cross, and Holy Cross covered against them. So sometimes that will make that favorite actually take the team more seriously. So there is that. Colgate might take them more seriously, but I do think they'll be looking ahead to Navy. They're playing a third road game in 4 games, which isn't exactly great either. So I think I would probably have to lean towards Holy Cross in this game, all things being considered. Holy Cross just broke a long losing streak, too. They had a 6-game losing streak. They're staying at home for a 3rd game in a row, and they might have some new momentum after ending the losing streak with a non-impressive win over Lehigh. So I think I would lean to Holy Cross in this one. Colgate's up from 6.5 to 8.5. I would probably take the points, though. The total is in the low 140s. Oh, all right. Thank you. All right. Citadel in Western Carolina. There are some interesting aspects of this game. Excuse me. Citadel just pulled off an upset of Chattanooga. I know Chattanooga's not good. Citadel is really not good. So this was an upset of a 9.5-point variety. Big upset for Citadel. 3rd straight road game now. So I think they're going to be in a letdown spot here. And they have Mercer on deck. Mercer is close to the top of the conference here in the Southern Conference. And Mercer absolutely embarrassed the Citadel when they played at Mercer earlier this year. They lost by almost 40 points and gave up over 100. So they very well may be looking ahead to that game. And they're playing Western Carolina here, and they already beat Western Carolina at home. But it was an overtime game. Western Carolina played them close, but Western Carolina was actually a 6.5-point favorite in that game. So it was really Citadel that played them close. So Western Carolina actually should take Citadel seriously after that because they know Citadel came into their place and almost embarrassed them. So, and now Western Carolina, they're on a 3-game losing streak. They did lose a couple of those games on the road, and one of them they were in a pretty major letdown spot if they pulled off a huge upset of East Tennessee State. So I think that's why they lost to Samford. It was a big letdown spot. Then they just lost 2 games on the road. Now they're back at home. And I do like when teams come back home and they lost their last home game in college basketball, because I think they're just more focused in that case because they remember losing that last home game and they want to redeem themselves from that too. This game has Western Carolina written all over it, man. And people might look at this and think, how is Western Carolina laying 7.5 points here when they actually have the worst record? Well, the odds makers are telling you they're the way better team anyway. Citadel sucks. The Citadel. And this line being 7.5 is kind of crazy considering that Western Carolina were 6.5-point favorites on the road. Now they're 7.5 at home. Looks like a very cheap line on Western Carolina. Everything about the situation. Am I going to add a play on the fly here? I mean, this one, I definitely looked at this game and it was on my radar. I think I kind of want to do it, man. I want to see what Ken Palm says about this, though. Western Carolina, he does have them fairly unlucky. They're in the bottom third of luck, which means that they've underperformed, so that's good. They're horrible defensively, but Citadel is probably just about as bad on the defensive side. It's just Western Carolina's significantly better than they are offensively. Western Carolina, a little bit of a faster-paced team. Citadel wants to go slow. Citadel is indeed horrible defensively, but they're also horrible on offense. And Ken Palm has Citadel as a bit luckier as well. They've overperformed a bit. And if Western Carolina is able to speed the game up, that will throw Citadel off a bit too. Let me see what Ken Palm has for a number on this. And I will once again recommend buying Ken Palm for whatever it is, $30 a year or whatever. Let me see. Western Carolina. So I might wind up with 8 plays here. I'm going to have to do a lot of Instagram action. Yeah, Ken Palm has this being a 9-point win. Let's do it. We're going to add Western Carolina. Everything pretty much adds up for me on this one. We'll lay the points. So we will have, I think I only have 2 favorites on the entire card today, and this will be one of them. And the other one is in the NBA. Let me see. Yeah, 7.5 is the best you can get. It's pretty abundant out there, although a lot of the books are charging you extra for it, so just be aware of that. I see it at the book that has a C. The C book has it at 7.5 still. All right, let's do it. There it is. All right, that'll be play number 1. Western Carolina minus 7.5. We will do that one. It's these second meetings, man. You can find some interesting lines in some of these. And yeah, of course, the books had to adjust a little bit because the Citadel has been winning some games, but they're still the significantly lesser of these two teams, man, regardless of what the records look like. So I do think this line is shortchanging Western Carolina a bit. Even if you agree that the 6.5 on the road was a little bit too high, I think this line is still too short. So Western Carolina will be the first play. All right, Big Ten Network. If you want me to talk about some of these other games that I'm skipping, I can, but I'm trying to obviously skip some of the less interesting games here for time purposes. Big Ten Network. I am talking about all the TV games as I usually do. 6:30 p.m. USC at Ohio State. USC having to play Ohio State on the road. A little bit of a weird environment for them, of course, but USC is also coming up barely getting by Penn State in their last game, so they might have been already looking ahead to this game. I expect more focus out of USC in this game against Ohio State, even if USC does have Illinois on deck. Ohio State should show up with effort as well, though, because they're a bubble team right now, so they got to get some wins here. They're coming off a big game over Michigan, though, and they do have Virginia next, which I thought was an ACC Big Ten challenge, but it is not because we don't see any of the other teams playing in that. It's a Nashville Hoops Classic or something. I don't know what that is. Very, very strange, isolated, out-of-conference game there. But for Ohio State, that is against a ranked Virginia team, and that would be a chance for Ohio State to pad their resume that way, too. So there is the potential they start looking ahead, man. So I probably lean to USC in this one. It's not really a strong opinion, but the money seems like it agrees. I don't know why this line moved up as much as it did from 4.5 to 7 now on Ohio State. Public coming in on Ohio State for whatever reason, even though the records of these teams are pretty close. 68% of the tickets on the Buckeyes, but 77% of the cash on USC. Trojan man. I got to get that drop for playing any team named the Trojans. But the money is coming in on USC. I would not disagree with it, but it's not a strong opinion from me. Next up, 7 p.m. ESPN2 in the SEC. Number 14, number 14, Florida. I apologize. Florida, who I still think is underranked by the rankings makers, but I also think Georgia might be a little bit under the radar at this point as well. It is Florida at Georgia, round 2, and I gave out Florida as a play, minus the points in the first game. Well, we're going to do the opposite this time. We're going to go the opposite, and we're going to play Georgia this time.
Yeah, I should do the opposite. I should.
If every instinct you have is wrong, then the opposite would have to be right.
Yes, I will do the opposite. I used to sit here and do nothing and regret it for the rest of the day. So now I will do the opposite, and I will do something.
We're doing the opposite. Georgia Costanza. We're doing it, man. Now, if you remember what that line was the first time Florida played Georgia, Florida was very under the radar, and they were in a very good spot in that one. Florida was actually laying 9.5 at home, and now you're telling me that they are laying 9.5 on the road. Yes, I know that back then, part of the reason why I laid the points with Florida there, gave that out as a play, was because Florida was undervalued. Yes, they should have been laying probably more points than that. But even if they were laying like 11.5 at home, should they really be laying 9.5 on the road here? I'm going to say that they shouldn't be. So I do think there is some line value on the Georgia side now. But we're also looking at the spot here, and I think that you could make the argument Florida's in a sandwich spot here. If you look at what Florida did the last 2 games, they pummeled a ranked Alabama team at the time, putting up 100 points against them, winning by 23. Then right after that, they went to Texas A&M and were not in a letdown spot. And Texas A&M was actually at the top of the SEC at the time, so that game had first place ramifications in the SEC, and Florida beat them on the road. I know Texas A&M's not as good as they look, I know. I think I might have even leaned Florida in that game, minus the whatever they were laying. I think they were laying about 6 points in that game. They easily just took care of Texas A&M. They won by almost 20 points in that game. Now they're playing a second road game, a third road game in 4 games. The previous game prior to the Alabama game, they won 95-48 against a weak South Carolina team. But after this run of games, man, I just think maybe they're going to be in a flat spot here. Georgia is likely to show up because Georgia's now kind of a tournament bubble team. They need to have a good performance here. And again, Florida did already beat Georgia at home 92-77. That game was close for about a half or so, but Florida completely pulled away in the second half, if I remember correctly. We got the win on that one with Florida. Florida was coming off an ugly loss on the road at Missouri. They were being pretty undervalued there. We got that one right. But now I think Florida might overlook Georgia a little bit for that reason. I think it's Georgia that's going to be playing with a chip on their shoulder. And Florida has Kentucky up next. And yeah, by the way, Kentucky is a half game behind them in the conference standings. So Florida's basically in an SEC standing sandwich here where they just took Texas A&M down a peg, and they're still only 1 game ahead of Texas A&M after that. But they have Kentucky right behind them, man, in the standings, and that's who they play next. Kentucky's ranked. Kentucky's playing better again right now. I told you Kentucky was a bit under the radar. Now they're starting to figure things out. So that is a big game on deck. So I think Florida is in a sandwich spot here. It is an in-season revenge game for Georgia as well. I think we're getting a line that's too high on Florida. So, yeah, we're going to take the points with Georgia. The money's all coming in on Florida, and I do not agree with that at all. I don't know why that's the case. They're up to 9.5, 93% of the cash on Florida, 54% of tickets on Georgia. Oh, no, we're taking – Georgia is 666 on the rotation. That's not good. You can walk up to the window and say, give me 666. We're going to lose with the maybe that's actually good because maybe it's rigged towards the team that's the number of the beast. I don't know. But we'll go with Georgia in this one. Looking at Florida, yes, I know they're extremely good, and yes, they're still underrated right now. Ken Bum has them as the 5th best team in the country. He actually has them unlucky as well. And yes, I know they're better than Georgia. He's got Georgia 37th. Florida better on both sides of the ball. I get it, but that's why they're laying points on the road. Georgia's still not a bad team. I mean, they're still top 40 according to KenPom. They're somewhat unlucky as well, so they're not one of these luckier teams according to KenPom. Both teams play fast, so it will be a fast-paced game. I wouldn't necessarily disagree with an over in this one either. The money looks like it is coming in that way. Total up to 165. But, again, I think this is a spot to take Georgia. That's what we're going to do in this one. And I think that's pretty much what I had to say about that. But, yes, I know I worry a little bit about taking points when it's going to be a higher-scoring game, a faster-paced game. But I think the spot dictates it, so we'll still do it. Oh, yes, and for Georgia, they just ended a 3-game losing streak with a win over LSU. So I think that's a good thing. Now they're back home. They lost the last 2 home games, so I expect focus out of them. They've had some good wins at home, too. They beat Arkansas at home by double digits. That was good. They beat Auburn at home. That's fine as well. I mean, they've had some losses at home as well. But, yeah, Georgia, I mean, they're a bit higher variance of a team, but we're going to do it, man. I don't know what the market is doing in this one, but Georgia is the play for me in that one. Okay. ACC Network, 7 p.m., Virginia Tech at number 20, Clemson. Virginia Tech is on a 2-game losing streak. They just got kind of blown out by North Carolina State in their last game. It's a second straight road game, but I'm expecting Virginia Tech to show up with some more focus here. They're a bubble team. They want to try to play their way back onto the tournament picture here. If they were able to beat Clemson, that would go a long way for that. Clemson is coming back from the Pacific Coast, where they just beat Stanford and Cal on the road, although I think Clemson was favored in both games. But they're having to travel cross-country, and they have Duke on deck in 3 days. So that is a pretty big look-ahead spot, man. Clemson could be looking ahead to Duke. Clemson is obviously sitting fairly pretty right now, at least as far as being in the tournament or whatever. Obviously, they'll be in the tournament. So there might be more need on the side of Virginia Tech, and you're going to be getting a decent amount of points with them as an underdog here. Clemson down from 9.5 to 8.5. It looks like they're getting the money for now, but I don't know if that will continue to be the case. 74% of tickets, 84% of the cash on Clemson. But that may change. Clemson may wind up being the public side. Clemson, we know what they do. They play slow. They focus on defense. The total's really low in the 130s, so it might make it more difficult for Clemson to cover the number there. I would lean towards taking the points with Virginia Tech in that game. Okay, ESPNU, 7 p.m., Cal at Syracuse. Cal just took a loss to Clemson. I thought Cal would play closer in that game, and they didn't, and now they're having to fly cross-country to play Syracuse. Might not be that easy for them to do, man. And if we look at this number, it looks crazy, right? Because Cal has the better record, but Syracuse is laying 5.5 in this game, so what gives, right? Like, the public, if they look at this game and they want some TV action, they're going to want to take the points with Cal, right? Oh, my God, I'm getting points with the team with the better record. It looks so easy to do that, but I would say do not do that. It's a weird venue for Cal to have to go to. They're new to the ACC as of, last year or whatever, 2 years ago. I don't even know if they played at Syracuse since then. For the unacquainted, it's not that easy to go and play in Syracuse. Syracuse is coming back home off 2 road losses. So I expect Syracuse to show up in this one. Syracuse has been a pretty good home team this year, actually. They almost beat Clemson here at home. They lost to Miami. They lost close to Virginia Tech. I mean, those are not horrible losses at home. And they beat Notre Dame. They really have not played that many conference home games yet either, which is interesting. But, yeah, I would lean to Syracuse in this one. They're laying the 5.5. Like I said, it is up from 3.5, though, so you have lost some value on it, which is a little bit worrisome because I think the 3.5 was probably closer to an accurate line on this. KenPom actually has these two teams like one after the other in his standing, so he has these teams very, very close, and they're also very similar teams. So it's like they're almost mirror images of each other. KenPom has both of them better defensively than offensively. They're both very close in both offense and defense. They're similar tempo-wise, kind of mid-tempo. But he does have Cal as the way luckier team. So that's the difference. So there's some statistics in there that KenPom has evaluated that tell you that, well, basically I think it's just because the teams are very similar statistically, yet Cal has the way better record. I think that kind of factors into the luck index and the fact that Cal probably should be a couple games worse than they are, and Syracuse should probably be a couple games better than they are. So, like, it would make a lot more sense if both teams had, like, a 15-9 record. But, yeah, the 3.5 would probably make more sense given all that in this game. Like, basically just giving Syracuse the home court, but they are up to 5.5. If you forced me to give you an opinion, I would still lay the points, though. 68% of the tickets on Cal, 84% of the cash on Syracuse. The money does agree with that. Arcade, what's up, man? Thanks for hanging out. All right. Next game I'm going to talk about is, I don't know, some of these, we have a lot of MAC action today, MACtion, but most of the games are pretty uninteresting. All right, let's go to the next best bet here. I've already given out 2, I think, right? This is going to be the third of 4 college plays. And we're going to go against the team that treated us well on Super Bowl Sunday. We're going to take VMI plus 8.5, and I know how bad VMI is, but at least we don't need them to win the game. We only need them to cover, but we're going to fade our pals at UNC Greensboro, who did us some good on Sunday, where they upset Furman on the road, outright win, but that's why I want to fade them here, man. The way that I do things, you know I'm going to be on a team one game and against them the next, and that's what we're doing here. I mean, you look at what UNC Greensboro did in this game. Come on, man. They shot 53% from three-point range. I mean, yeah, they definitely did enough to cover, but the fact that they won the game was a little bit misleading. The game was definitely fairly close, but that three-point percentage outlier was pretty much what did it. And then Furman was awful from three-point range in the game, 26%. That was kind of the main reason why this happened. That and the fact that Furman actually lost the turnover battle as well. So that could have been a little bit fluky as well. But either way, UNC Greensboro is coming up a big upset of Furman. Now they're playing VMI, who they did already beat on the road by 7, which I believe was a cover. I think Greensboro's so bad they weren't favored very heavily. No, they're only 2.5-point favorites, which, by the way, if you're now saying they're 8.5 at home, these teams don't really get that much for home court advantage. It's not like there are going to be people packing the arena for a UNC Greensboro game against VMI. That's not going to happen. So I think giving them like 3.5 for home court is inaccurate. Giving VMI that is also inaccurate. So this line does look a little high based on what it was in that previous game. UNC Greensboro may very well just not take VMI seriously whatsoever because they're the worst team in the conference by far. They have 1 win, at least in the standings that's the case. Again, Greensboro already beat them on the road. Greensboro's in a major letdown spot after a double-digit upset. I think they were, what were they again, like 12.5-point dogs in that game? And they're going to be looking ahead, I think, too, because they have Wofford next. And Wofford already beat them by double digits at Wofford, but Wofford's also second place in the Southern Conference here and 1 game off of the lead in the conference. So that is a big game to look ahead to, man. And when you're UNC Greensboro and you're playing out the stretch a little bit here, you know, you're not really doing much here. I mean, yeah, UNC Greensboro will be in, you know, they'll play in the conference tournament, of course. Like, I don't think they're going to drop so far. I think maybe the bottom couple of teams missed the conference tournament in this conference. I'm not even sure if that's actually true. I think it is possible every team gets in. I'm not even entirely sure about that. But I don't think they're in danger of that or anything like that. So I think it's an overlooked spot for them. And for VMI, I think as bad as they are, I think you'll at least get effort out of them. They've lost a bunch of games in a row since they had their 1 conference win, which was at home against Chattanooga. So, yeah, I know they've lost every road game. And they've lost some of these games in some awful blowouts. I know. But we're going to do it anyway, man. Even though I know, again, they've lost most of these games in big-time blowouts on the road. The one to the Citadel really doesn't look good. But this is what we're doing. We're going to go with it. It's a horrible spot for UNC Greensboro. And Greensboro's not a good team, man. Like, I just don't think a team that's not even in the top 300, I don't know if they should be laying 8.5 like this. Ken Bum has them as the 41st luckiest team in the country. They're horrible defensively, so I don't know if they should really be laying points in that respect either. Bottom 20 defensive team, basically. And they play a bit on the slower end, which is also strange. But if they're going to slow the pace down, that's also going to make it more difficult for them to cover this number, I think. And yes, I know VMI is the second worst defensive team in the country, and they're bottom 7 overall. I know they're atrocious. I get it. Both teams are better on offense, but I think it's going to be an ugly, slow game. VMI is also unlucky, according to KenPom, in the bottom third of luck. So we're going with it. We'll take VMI in this one. The line did drop initially from 9.5 to 8.5. You might be able to find a 9 on this. The total is at 150, basically because both defenses are that bad. But we're going to do it anyway, man. It's all about the spot. VMI is the play in that one. And my favorite college basketball play is the one that I have left, which I consider making my only college basketball play of the day. But we're splashing the board here today, man. And hopefully we can at least come away with a slight winning day, hopefully. Furman and Mercer is actually a good game in the SoCon here between the third and fourth place teams in the conference who are actually tied in conference record. This is a pretty good one. Furman beat Mercer by 2 at home the first time they played. Furman was a 2.5-point favorite when that game went off, so it was very close to the line too. So these teams are decently matched up, but it is Furman who's coming off that horrible upset loss to UNC Greensboro. And remember, that was because they were in a sandwich. They had come off playing really close against East Tennessee State, who was in first place in the conference on the road. That was a big game for Furman. And they had this huge Mercer game on deck. So it was a sandwich spot. That was part of the reason why we went with Greensboro there. Mercer coming into this game off of 2 straight losses and having an ugly loss where they didn't even get 50 points in their last game. Both of those games on the road, losing to Samford in the last game, coming back home. I think both teams are going to show up for this. Mercer is the small favorite in this one. Furman is probably the slightly better team, which is what the odds makers are telling you. But I don't know, man. I think just the fact that Mercer has that ugly 10th loss on their record, it might have the public somewhat looking towards Furman, and maybe they remember Furman pulling off that upset in the tournament a couple years back against Virginia with that 3, the Furman Paladins. Although, of course, you know, it's a different Furman team this year and whatever. But, yeah, I mean, this game is really, really difficult to figure out. I think both teams are going to show up. I think it's going to be a good game. The market read is saying Mercer. Furman is getting the public action, it looks like, for now. 79% of tickets, 59% of the cash on Furman. So it looks like one of those public underdogs. And you know I like to look to fade those teams. I don't know how much the public is really getting involved in this game, though, because it's not a TV game. It is on ESPN Plus, though. Mercer laying the 2.5. I would probably lay it with Mercer. That would probably be the way I would lean in that game, would be Mercer. In the SoCon on CBS Sports, the team that does get the TV game at 7 p.m. is East Tennessee and Chattanooga. I don't know why they get another TV billing, man, because this game is a bit lopsided. East Tennessee is obviously the way better team here. Chattanooga, I believe, when Chattanooga hosted them, I believe that was a TV game too. So I don't know what's going on, man, if there's money that these schools are paying the TV stations or what's going on. I don't know how they get 2 TV games, but that is the case. And Chattanooga actually played East Tennessee really well the other time they played them back several games ago. Pretty sure that was a TV game, and Chattanooga played them to within 1 point. Now, it's a big matchup for Chattanooga because I think they consider themselves to be a little brother to East Tennessee in the state of Tennessee. But they really showed up for that game, and they almost pulled off the upset against East Tennessee. East Tennessee were not huge favorites, though, only 4.5, but still, East Tennessee barely getting by them in that game might have them taking Chattanooga more seriously in this game. Chattanooga is coming off a really ugly home loss to Citadel, though. Like I said, Chattanooga was a huge favorite in that one, 9.5, so they were probably looking ahead to this game, and they were coming off a big win over Mercer, so they were in a sandwich spot, man. That was a good spot to look towards the Citadel. I probably talked about that game on the show. It wasn't one of my plays, though. But, yeah, when you have a team like that, like Chattanooga coming off a big upset loss like that, I think you do expect them to be focused in the next game. But I do think East Tennessee won't overlook Chattanooga this time. And East Tennessee's coming off an easy win over VMI. They only play Samford next, which is not that big. Although Samford is a team that almost beat them earlier this year as well. What do we do with this game? Well, besides stay away from it, of course. The money is the market read is saying to lay it with East Tennessee, man. Chattanooga has 88% of tickets, only 85% of the cash on them. So they look like kind of a public underdog here. Maybe the public is going to try to play this game and go, oh, well, Chattanooga almost beat East Tennessee before, so they can come within this number, right? Even though it is at East Tennessee. East Tennessee laying 10.5 this time. I know it's a pretty low total in the 140s. I would probably lean towards laying it, though. I know Chattanooga's in a good bounce-back spot, but if you're getting the significantly better team showing up with focus, and I think East Tennessee might do that because Chattanooga almost beat them before, then you'll probably get a good effort out of East Tennessee State and maybe enough to win that game by margin. But that's not anything I want to touch at all. Alabama at Ole Miss on SEC Network at 7 p.m. Alabama has dropped from the rankings, although I think they're a little bit under the radar at this point, man. Ken Bum still has them in the top 20. They're really good on offense and terrible on defense. Well, not terrible, but by top 20 standards, yeah, they're pretty bad defensively. But Alabama's coming off a pretty big win, man, in the Iron Bowl, or whatever it is, but basketball edition of it, beating Auburn. So a nice rivalry win for Alabama there on the road. Now they're playing a third road game in 4 games, and they're going to Ole Miss, which could be a frustrating game for Alabama, man. They could be in a letdown spot after this because they did have a decent win over Texas A&M the game before that, even though they actually didn't cover in that game. Still, a big rivalry win for them, and now they're going to Ole Miss, and Ole Miss is going to slow this game way down, which might frustrate Alabama because Alabama wants to go really, really fast. So Ole Miss might actually be able to come within this number just based on the style of play. You got to think they're going to show up for this game. They've lost 5 games in a row, but 4 of them are on the road. Ole Miss has had a very brutal schedule here, man. They played 6 road games in the last 7 games. So I think they're going to be happy now that they're back at home. They did lose their last home game to Auburn, which people might look at that and think, oh, well, of course, if Alabama beat Auburn and Auburn beat Ole Miss, this is easy. Lay the points with Alabama here, right? But again, everybody knows Alabama's the better team here, right? Like, that's not in question. That's the reason why, if you want Alabama, you're going to have to lay a lot of points here. But I would not do that. I would lean to Ole Miss. Ole Miss has been okay at home. If you look at what they've done at home this year, they only lost by 7 to Arkansas. They beat Missouri. They did have that loss to Auburn, though. But those were their only 3 conference home games all season so far. So I think Ole Miss, you know, they're not that good this year, but their record looking so bad is a product of them having so many conference road games so far. They have not had it easy at all. They should have a beef with the schedule makers, but I would take the points with Ole Miss in this one. Alabama's a 7-point favorite, down from 7.5. 65% of tickets, 80% of the cash on Ole Miss. The Rebels, that's the way I would go in that game, would be taking the points. It looks too easy to lay 7 with Alabama, man. So those are my thoughts on that. And I think with Ole Miss, you may be getting the better defense still, too. Technically, yes, you are, although it's not by that much. But you are getting the better defense, getting points at home with Ole Miss. Ole Miss has been extremely unlucky, according to Ken Bum, and they face the 19th most difficult schedule. So that's what I've been saying, man. And they're like bottom 40 in luck as well. So they've been a pretty unlucky team. And, yes, they do slow the game way down. But the odds makers have this total quite high in the 160s because Alabama is the better team and they play really fast. But I think Ole Miss might be able to slow it down, man. Again, it's easier to slow the game down. The home team might be able to control the pace a little bit. So, yeah, I would take the points with the Rebels in that one. All right, Austin P and Queens is like the only really interesting game in the A-Sun. These teams are near the top of the conference right now, even though I would not count out Lipscomb, though, even though they've fallen into 4th place. Austin P is probably the best team in this conference at the moment. They've won a bunch of games in a row, 6 games in a row. They beat Lipscomb a couple games ago. They blew out North Alabama in the last game, which they're not a very good team. I mean, they could not even get the win for me the other day when they were basically winning the entire game outright. They pushed on that number on the 7. That was ridiculous, man. But Austin P, yeah, they're not a bad team. They're better than Queens. I think Queens is a little bit overrated. I apologize to their coach, who hopefully still follows me on Twitter. I don't know. I haven't seen him for a while. Queens, though, they're at home. You know they're going to show up for this game, although I think both teams are going to show up. They're both coming off blowout wins over some of the bad teams in the conference. Queens does have to play Lipscomb next, so they have to play a couple of the best teams in the conference back-to-back, which isn't that easy. But in this game, yeah, Queens is actually a 2-point favorite here. And the odds makers are telling you that there's not that much of a difference between these two teams. Like, I think the public is probably going to have a tendency to want to grab the points. Oh, Austin Peay getting points with the better record here. But the odds makers are telling you they're not that much better than Queens. I would probably go Queens on this one. It would probably be, yeah, I guess because they're 2.5, I guess it would be laying the points in that one. If it drops to like 2 and you find like a decent money line on it, the money line might make sense in that one. Ken Bum, he only has Austin Peay. He has a pretty lucky top 100 luck team, and he has them only at 152nd, so that's not great. Queens is still lucky, but a little bit less lucky. Queens is very lopsided, though. They're good on offense, and they're really bad on defense. So I guess technically Austin Peay is the better defense getting points in that game, though. So that would be a concern if you do like Queens in that game, but I don't have a good way to analyze that game with the way that I do things, though. So TNT, True TV, 7:30 p.m. Number 6, Yukon at Butler. Of course, I do think Yukon is a little bit overrated by the rankings makers right now, even though they did just take a loss to St. John's. Ken Bum does have Yukon 8th in the country. They're not really that good offensively, though. Out of the top 10, they're the second worst offensive team besides Michigan State. Yukon and Michigan State both very good on defense, but not that good on offense. Yukon is coming off that loss to St. John's, and Yukon took their first conference loss, and they hadn't lost since earlier in the season. Actually, Yukon's only other loss was to Arizona by 4 points really early in the season. But I was saying that Yukon had not been battle-tested in the Big East yet, even though their out-of-conference schedule was difficult. So, I don't know. They were just kind of coasting. I thought St. John's might catch them. That is what happened. But now when you're in a position like Yukon and you hadn't lost since, like, probably December, and now you take a loss, that could easily hang you over into the next game, man. You could lose that game twice, and that was a big game against St. John's, too. So, you know, that's been a situation that's worked a lot, and it worked again for us barely, but it did work with Pitt last night. They did cover against Duke. Like, these teams have mostly lost the next game outright, although most of them have been small-ish favorites in the next game, but these teams that have lost long win streaks and taken their first conference loss, I think pretty much every single one of them has failed to cover in the next game. So that's what we're looking at with Yukon here. I think they could lose the game twice, if you will. It's a third road game in 4 games. It's a weird travel spot. If you look at the travel they've had to do, they were in Omaha, then they came back to Connecticut. Then they played at Madison Square against St. John's, and now they're going back out to Indianapolis. And they already beat Butler by 19 points at home. So there's the potential they don't take Butler seriously. And they do have Georgetown on deck. And Georgetown actually gave them a run for their money when they played at Georgetown. They only won by 2. So there actually is the potential they might even look ahead to Georgetown here. Butler might be a little bit under the radar at this point. They've lost 4 games in a row, so I think a lot of people won't be paying attention to them. But 3 of those games were on the road. They're back home now, and they did lose their last home game by double digits. And, you know, I talk about that too. Again, teams returning home from road trips like this in college basketball, when they come back home and they've lost the last home game, a lot of times they will show up with focus. Butler kind of got embarrassed going to Marquette and playing that game. They're back home now. They're getting Yukon in what I think is a major hangover spot for Yukon. It's revenge, so Butler might be able to make the adjustments here. I like Butler in this game, man, and Yukon's going to be laying double digits here probably. And they're a slow-paced team, so it's going to make it difficult for them to cover a number like this. Public will be on Yukon. They'll expect, well, Yukon hadn't lost since December. Of course they're going to bounce back here, right? That's not the way to look at this game, though, man. I would take the points with Butler. 93% of tickets, 95% of the cash on Yukon. They're up from 10.5 to 11 here. The total's pretty low at 145. Butler might try to speed the game up a bit because I think they play significantly faster than Yukon does. But Yukon being the better team probably will be able to slow the game down. But even if they do, covering a number like this is not going to be easy. So it's not going to be a play, but I will recommend Butler in that game. And yes, Butler is close to the top 100 in tempo. But yeah, Butler would be the way I would lean in that one. In the American at 7:30, this is probably the best game in the American Conference tonight. South Florida and Wichita State at Wichita State. These teams are both near the top of the conference. They're both pretty good, but South Florida is coming off a huge win over Tulsa. So they beat the top team in the conference at home. Big win. Could maybe be a letdown spot here. However, they lost at home to Wichita. So they might not overlook Wichita at all, man. But they're having to play at least 2 big games in a row here and having to travel from Florida out to Wichita, which is not going to be that easy. Wichita coming off an easy win over Tulane. They are coming back from Tulane here. They do have Tulsa on deck, but I don't see them overlooking South Florida, even though they did beat them on the road. I think the spot is more difficult for South Florida in this one, man. So I would lean to Wichita in that game, but I don't love the game by any means. But that's the way I would lean in that one. South Florida down from 2 to a pick'em here. Even though, yes, I think South Florida will show up for the game. Again, I think it's going to be difficult for them with the travel, plus having to play 2 huge effort games in a row like that. So it would be Wichita would be the way I would lean in that one. The Shockers stopping me from adding Butler. I don't know. Feeling. I don't think it's strong enough. I don't know. It would basically be you're entirely pretty much just playing the Yukon letdown spot here. Like Duke was a stronger read for me because it was a sandwich spot as well. They had a huge game on deck. Yukon doesn't really, so I don't know. I don't know. I don't want it. Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's close to being on my card, but I don't know. I don't like it enough. Sometimes, I don't know, it's about the way that I feel about it. I don't know. I would rather have Butler being in a spot where they were like a huge favorite or something and lost the game or something like that coming off of that. Like, the only thing about this spot is that it is a big negative with UConn coming off that big game, but that's really the only factor in that game. Like, I like there to be more factors that line up. The old me probably would play Butler though. Peacock 7:30 p.m. Providence at Seton Hall. Providence, they're on a little 2-game win streak here, so they got some momentum coming into this one. They already lost at home to Seton Hall too, so I think they're going to show up for this game at Seton Hall, even though they do have St. John's on deck. Seton Hall, 2 straight losses, but they were just on the road and they just had to go to Omaha. And they played Creighton really close as, I presume, an underdog in that game on the road. So I think the spot sets up a lot better for Providence. Creighton was actually only a 1.5-point favorite in that game. So oddsmakers telling you Seton Hall actually better than Creighton, but that was still a big game. Creighton hasn't done that badly this year. Seton Hall with the travel back home coming off of that. I don't like the spot for Seton Hall here, man. It's a revenge spot for Providence. Seton Hall does only have Butler next, although Butler did beat them at Seton Hall, so there is the potential they do look ahead to that game. Yeah, to me, the spot sets up better for Providence here, although Providence, these 2 teams are complete opposites as far as how they play. Like, Providence can score, they can't defend. Seton Hall can only defend, and they can't score. Seton Hall is way slow, Providence is way fast. Totals in the middle there because I think the odds makers are like, we don't know which one is going to win out as far as the tempo is concerned. 86% of the tickets, only 70% of the cash on Seton Hall, so they're a public side with less of the money on them. Laying 4 points with Seton Hall. I know it's not even that many points, but Seton Hall is so deficient offensively that, I mean, they're not even a top 100 defensive team, so I don't know, man. But yes, I like Providence in the game. If I was going to play it, I would take the points with Providence in that one. Although I don't necessarily love, and this is part of the reason why I maybe don't love Butler as much. There's, I don't know, I do like the teams that are better defensively. Like, that's one thing, and that is certainly Yukon in that game. And then in this game, it is Seton Hall. But, yeah, I don't know. All right, we got 8 p.m. Colorado at number 16, Texas Tech. should be a bit of a mismatch here. Obviously, Texas Tech is the better team. Did these teams play already? Yes, they did. And actually, Colorado almost upset Texas Tech at home. So Texas Tech might take them seriously because they went into Colorado, which is kind of a weird spot for Texas Tech going into elevation. I believe Colorado was getting blown out in that game, and they had a huge comeback late in the game, if I remember correctly. I think I gave out Colorado as a play in that one. Yeah, because Texas Tech was coming off a really close loss to Houston, so I think I did give out Colorado as a play there. It was a little bit dangerous, I guess. So Texas Tech might show up because of that, because Colorado did play them really close in the end in that game. Colorado's coming off a win over Arizona State. That's fine. They have some momentum, I guess, coming into this one. It's not a horrible spot for Colorado, but if you're getting the better team in Texas Tech in a focused spot, they might be able to just blow this team out. Texas Tech just went to West Virginia. They were able to get the win there to bounce back from a 2-game losing streak, so maybe they do have momentum again coming into this. One issue with Texas Tech, though, is they got Arizona on deck in 3 days. That is a huge game coming up on, I believe that must be Saturday, because there are a lot of games on Valentine's Day. That might be a huge look ahead, but there is still a case that Colorado gave Texas Tech a real run for their money, man, the other time they played them. So for that reason, Texas Tech might actually come into this game with focus. The money looks like it is on Texas Tech. They're up from 14 to 15 here. 79% of tickets, 94% of the cash on them. I'll agree with it. I'll slightly lean that way towards laying it with Texas Tech, but also not a game that I love. Florida Atlantic at Rice. Florida Atlantic is coming off a close loss to Tulsa. Now, they've lost 4 games in a row, and usually teams are going to just show up with focus against anyone when they're on a 4-game losing streak. That was a monster game against Tulsa, the top team in the American Conference here in Florida Atlantic. FAU almost pulled off the upset there. So I think they could be in a bit of a hangover spot off of that. They're playing at Rice now, who I don't think they've played there this year, so they're having to go to Houston to play this game, and they have a huge game on deck, too, against South Florida, who's basically tied with Tulsa in the conference now. So I think Florida Atlantic is in a sandwich spot here. I would lean towards Rice, although Rice is pretty bad. But the problem I have with Rice in this spot is that they just had a tough game, too. They're big underdogs at UAB, and they played well, and they almost pulled off an upset as 8.5-point underdogs at UAB. So I just don't know what Rice will have left in the tank for this, although they should get up for the game at home against FAU. But, yeah, I mean, it was a close call from Rice against UAB, so I worry about that aspect of it. The money's actually coming in on FAU, which makes no sense to me. Like, if I was going to play this game, I would take the points with Rice, but it's not going to be on my card. FAU up from 2.5 to 3.5, 58% of the cash on them. 82% of the tickets are on Rice. That makes no sense to me. Like, why would the public be playing Rice? They know the name FAU from the, whatever his name, Dusty May from those days, the guy who's the coach of Michigan now. So they remember the name FAU. So I don't know. And FAU has the better record. It looks like they're laying too few points, too. So I don't really see the public being on Rice here. I don't get those percentages. But, yes, I would lean to Rice there. Next game up is my last play in college basketball. And we are going to go, we're in the American still, and we're going to go with UAB plus the points against, this was the one that I thought was, I think this is my favorite play out of all of these. We're going to fade Tulsa in this one. Tulsa, they just lost a long win streak, so I talk about that. They've won 7 games in a row, I think. And when teams lose long win streaks like that, that can be a hangover spot in of itself. But it was a huge game that they lost at South Florida. It was a pretty competitive game. I watched the end of it. It was a good game at the end of it. It was pretty close. South Florida, I think, hit some free throws at the end, whatever. It was a close game. Huge game. Tulsa took the loss in that game. I think they might be hung over, man. They're playing UAB now, who's not near the top of the conference standings, though they're not a bad team. And Tulsa already beat UAB on the road by 22 points. So I think Tulsa might overlook UAB here, man. If you look at what the line was in this game, UAB was a 1.5-point favorite in this game, yet now they're 9.5-point underdogs on the road. So that seems like too much of a shift. coming into this one, man. Like, I think we've shifted the line just too much here. Like, I don't think these teams get that much for home court in these smaller conferences. So this line, I think, is over-adjusted towards Tulsa. Although, yeah, back then, we didn't know exactly what these teams were back then. But I don't think UAB has really proven themselves to be, like, way worse than we thought they were or anything like that. I think Tulsa, yeah, they've looked better than we thought. But still, I think we're getting some value with UAB in this one. Although I think Ken Bum does have this line right around the 10 as well. But whatever. Tulsa does have Wichita on deck, and they might be looking ahead to that because Wichita is only one game behind them in the standings, whereas UAB is 2. So still, I know these teams are all pretty close to each other, but Wichita just might grab more of their attention. They played Wichita a little bit closer at home a couple games ago. So, yeah, I see this being a spot where you want to play UAB. And the other thing that lines up for UAB is the other thing I just talked about. UAB just had a bad game against Rice, and I think they were looking ahead to this game, and they were also coming off a tough game against Memphis where they lost. So I think UAB was looking ahead to this one, man. So I like UAB. I know it's a little bit of a weird travel spot here, having to go to Oklahoma to play this one, but these teams have been in this conference for a while now. We're going to do it. You actually might be able to get 10 on this now. 60% of tickets, 71% of the cash on UAB, and I know it's a high total. I know Tulsa's a good offensive team, and they do play fast. I get that. But if we look at Ken Bum, the other thing I like about this is that we're actually getting the better defense with UAB as well. Tulsa, they're a top 25 offense. They're 55th overall according to Ken Bum. So yeah, they're legit, but their defense is not that legit. Their defense is in the middle of the pack, 166, and they're lucky according to Ken Bum, 77th in luck. So they've overperformed a bit. They play a little bit on the faster side, but not ridiculously fast. UAB actually plays faster, so that might be part of the reason why the total is that high. But UAB won't be thrown off by the tempo. I think both teams will be okay playing fast here, but UAB is more of a balanced team at the very least. They're not top 100 in anything. They're in the 130s and everything, but they're very close on both offense and defense, and they're better on defense than Tulsa is. So you are getting the better defense, getting points in this one as well. So a lot of things do line up for me in this one, and UAB is the less lucky team, according to Ken Bum as well. So UAB plus the points is what it'll be in that one. And that looks, I think the only market read that's opposing me is the Florida-Georgia game. So, I don't know. North Dakota, South Dakota in the Summit's kind of an interesting one. North Dakota just took an ugly loss at home to Denver. However, I could see it going two ways here because North Dakota lost a 5-game win streak. And again, I'll say when a team loses a win streak, sometimes that they will be hung over into the next game. But because they lost as a big favorite, maybe they'll bounce back from that loss. So I could see it going both ways. But they actually weren't that big of a favorite, believe it or not. They're only 3.5, even though Denver's not good. And North Dakota does have a big game on deck against North Dakota State. So overall, I actually think this is a bad spot for North Dakota here. I think they may be looking ahead, and they already beat South Dakota at home by 16. So they might overlook South Dakota for that reason too. South Dakota coming into this game off of beating South Dakota State on the road, though. That was a big win for South Dakota, man. That was part of my handicap with South Dakota and Kansas City, UMKC, which wound up being a stupid loss for me, even though UMKC almost had the outright win there. It was not to be, but I knew South Dakota was going to be looking ahead to their bigger brother in South Dakota State. And even though South Dakota State had the lesser record, they were a double-digit favorite in this game, 11.5, and South Dakota still pulled off the upset, which is insane. So they're coming off a monster upset there. And yeah, this is revenge, but this is a pretty bad spot for South Dakota, man. So it's like, which team is in the worst spot, really, is the question. South Dakota dropped from 1 to a pick'em here. I guess I'll agree with that sentiment and go with North Dakota here because it's still the case that North Dakota's coming off losing as a favorite, and South Dakota's coming off a monster upset in their primary rivalry. So I guess I'll lean to North Dakota plus the 1 point in that one. It's an interesting game, though. Alexander, what's up? No, Yukon, I pretty emphatically said I would take the points with Butler against Yukon. I do not think that Yukon rolls. I think there might be the potential that Yukon loses that game, to be honest. I think they're in a pretty horrible spot. Texas Tech, I have a slight lean towards Texas Tech laying the points in that one, but I don't love that one really. I could see Texas Tech winning that game by margin. And it's the way that I lean, but it's not a huge opinion from me. Troy at Texas State's kind of an interesting one. Troy had probably the most impressive win in the Sun Belt MAC Challenge. They had, of course, the Sun Belt teams all had home games this year, but Troy beat Akron, so that was a big win. Akron's legit, best team in the MAC still. I don't care about Miami, Ohio. Akron's still better. Troy, nice win from Troy. Got to give them credit for that. Now they're playing Texas State, who they already beat by 20 at home and put up 100 against them. So I could maybe see Troy being in a little bit of a letdown spot here, having to go to Texas State. Troy only has Southern Miss up next, though, which isn't a huge game, and they already embarrassed Southern Miss as well. So not really a look ahead or anything. Texas Tech may get up for this one, or Texas State, may get up for this one. They've won 4 in a row, including winning their game against the MAC as well, against a bad Western Michigan team. So, yeah, Texas State, they only have one really good win in this run of wins that they have against Marshall, but it seems like it gave them some new momentum. They're coming into this with momentum. I would look towards Texas State in this one. I think you could make the argument it's a letdown for Troy, a bit of revenge motive for Texas State, or the better way to look at it is Troy just might not take them seriously. Troy's laying 5 points. 81% of the tickets are on Troy, 70% of the cash on Texas State. So there is a pretty big pros versus Joes split. It's looking like that in the market right now, at least. I agree with it. I would take the points with Texas State in that one. Because Yukon is coming off a huge game against St. John's, and that was their first loss since December. So when teams take a loss and they haven't lost basically all season, almost every time it's happened this year, that team has been horrible in the next game. And I played Pitt in that against Duke in that spot last night and got the cover with Pitt. It should have been an easier cover though. But most of the teams in that spot have lost the game outright. It's a horrible, horrible spot. When you are just coasting through the season, you haven't lost for months, and then you lose a game in a huge game against the only team that can compete with you in the conference, and they already crushed Butler the first time they played them. So all of that makes it a terrible spot for them, and it's probably a positive spot for Butler because they've lost multiple games in a row, including getting blown out by Marquette in the last game. So, yeah. That spot, it has Butler written all over it. If I was going to add another play to my card here, it would be Butler plus the points. That and laying points with Yukon might not be the greatest idea either because they're a slow-paced defensive team laying a shit ton of points on the road, also in a bad spot. None of that looks good to me at all. I'm pretty emphatic about that one. Butler is the right side in that game as far as I'm concerned. What else we got here? Michigan, number 2 in the country at Northwestern. We'll see if Michigan jumps up to number 1 after Arizona lost. I'm not sure if they will, but I don't know. We'll see, man. Michigan, though, Michigan is very, very formidable. There is the potential that Michigan winds up being my champion pick in my bracket, but we got to see, you know me, I do game theory, so I have to try to fade. I'm not going to be on the most popular team, you know what I mean? The most popular selection. I don't know if it's going to be Michigan or not, but Michigan plays a style that I like where they're a paint presence team. They have a bunch of size in the paint, and they don't rely on three-pointers, which is the more variable thing. So I like teams that focus down low, and they just dominate in the more predictable stats, and that is Michigan. But we got to handicap Michigan at Northwestern here. Big Ten Network, 8:30 p.m., Michigan coming into this game off of beating Ohio State. They beat them down by 21 points on the road, beat them by more than they did at home. That is still kind of a rivalry, Michigan, Ohio State, whatever, and Michigan does have UCLA on deck. There is a potential they're looking ahead to that, and they got Purdue and Duke on deck after that. Duke might be, I was going to say Duke is in that Nashville thing. It's not. It's in the Edward Jones Capital Showcase, whatever the fuck that is. I have no idea. But there is a potential that Michigan just doesn't take Northwestern that seriously here. They did not play them this year at all, I don't think. But they have it surrounded by games against potential tournament teams, which Northwestern is not. And as I've been showing you with Ken Palm's numbers, Northwestern is like the second or third unluckiest team in the entire country or something like that, according to Ken Palm. So they have massively underperformed what their actual talent level is. They've had a lot of competitive losses. So Northwestern is not a team to overlook, but teams will overlook them. So, and this might be a spot where Michigan does just that, and it's a third road game in 4 games for them as well. Northwestern, the problem I have with Northwestern is they're coming off a close game against Iowa. So Northwestern played well after getting blown out by Illinois in embarrassing fashion. They had a nice bounce-back game, and they played really well against Iowa. Covering is a big underdog, so that's what worries me. When a team covers as a big underdog, I don't really love how that sets up for them in the next game, but I don't know, man. In this game, I think I probably would lean towards Northwestern. I think the money was coming in on Michigan, though. Yeah, well, Michigan did drop from 15.5 to 15. They will be a public side, but it looks like 64% of tickets, 92% of the cash on Michigan. Looks like more of the money than the tickets are on Michigan for now, so which kind of makes them not totally public, really, although the public ticket percentage, I'm sure, will be on them. You know, Northwestern is in a tough spot for sure because they're going to have to play 2 big games in a row, but there is the potential that Michigan just looks right past them. And I think line value-wise, you're probably getting some on Northwestern just because they're so undervalued just in general. Let me find Northwestern here. If I can type. Yeah, Ken Bum has them 68th, which isn't really that bad. He has them 6th unluckiest team in the country right now. They play the 24th most difficult schedule. Yeah, I mean, they're not a horrible team. They're top 100 in both offense and defense, and they're going to try to slow the game down. And if they're able to do that, it could muddy it up a little bit, and maybe they'll be able to cover. Not a game that I want anything to do with, really, though. CBS Sports, 9 p.m., Cincinnati at Kansas State. Interesting Big 12 matchup where Cincinnati, like the odds makers keep telling you that Cincinnati is not as bad as their record looks. They're going to be a road favorite in this game, I think, but they are coming off a nice win over UCF, who is at the moment likely to be a tournament team, although I think UCF is not really that good. Nice win for Cincinnati, though. It was a revenge spot as well because they lost at UCF before. They beat them at home. Now they got to go to Manhattan, Kansas, but they may still focus on Kansas State. They may show up for this game. I don't believe they played them this year. Kansas State, they're down, way down, not having a good season, and they're coming off a pretty difficult game against TCU where they were 9.5-point underdogs, and they almost upset TCU. And, in fact, they were pretty much – I think they were winning, like, the entire game for the most part. Yeah, they were blowing TCU out of this game, and TCU – came back and won right at the end after Kansas State had the lead all game. That sets up a pretty brutal spot for Kansas State here, man, to be honest. And they have Houston on deck. So, I mean, if you're Kansas State and everything's going wrong for you, I mean, ideally, yeah, you're going to want to try to get a conference win. But coming off a monster effort like that and having another monster game on deck, the spot looks pretty bad to me for Kansas State, man. So I think I would have to lean towards Cincinnati here. Kansas State is a public side, too. It looks like 79% of tickets, 54% of the cash on them, and Cincinnati up from 2 to 2.5 here as a road favorite, which I told you they would be. And I think the public is not going to want anything to do with that side. Well, you can see that they probably don't based on those percentages I just showed you. But, yeah, I would lean to Cincinnati in this one, although Cincinnati has trouble scoring. So if you're wanting to lay points with them on the road, it's a little bit iffy. I mean, you could go money line on this if you really want to, although you're not having to lay a ton of points with them in this one. But, yeah, I like Cincinnati in this one. They're the better defense as well in the game. Cincinnati actually 11th defensively, but they're pathetic on offense. Kansas State is the better offense, so they are the way worse defense. Although Kansas State is extremely unlucky, according to Ken Bum. They're like a bottom 20-something team in luck, but so is Cincinnati, in fact. So, which is what I was saying a little while ago, that the odds makers seem to respect Cincinnati quite a bit. But, yeah, I like Cincinnati in that one, although Cincinnati, you know, I hesitate a little bit because they are coming off a pretty nice win over UCF, who is a tournament team at this point, likely. So, Although UCF, I mean, they have the potential to fall apart down the stretch, too. But anyway, yeah, I think Kansas State is in the much more brutal spot there. Creighton at DePaul on Peacock, 9 p.m. I don't think these teams have played yet. Am I wrong about that? No, they play again later in February. Creighton just beat Seton Hall. Nice win for Creighton, but it broke a losing streak as well. So sometimes you break out of the losing streak, it will give you momentum. But they got Villanova, Yukon, and St. John's all on deck in their next 3 games. So you could make the argument that this is a sandwich spot for Creighton because they're coming off beating a decent Seton Hall team that is a tournament bubble team, and then they got 3 tournament teams on deck, the top 3 teams in the Big East. So, yeah, there are definitely some concerns about Creighton in this one as far as the schedule is concerned. DePaul's lost 4 games in a row, 3 of them on the road, and the home one was against St. John's. So I don't know if you can really blame them for those losses. Now they're back at home where they did have that loss back at home against St. John's. But DePaul's been okay at home. They beat Seton Hall at home, which I think was a winner I gave out on the show. I think they did catch Seton Hall in a bad spot there. But you look at DePaul, they've won a bunch of home games in the conference. They beat Seton Hall, Marquette, Georgetown, Xavier. They lost to Yukon at home and St. John's at home, like I said, but you can't blame them for that. So they've been able to beat like the more – well, they've beaten the bad teams. We don't know if they can beat a mediocre Creighton team here, but I would lean to DePaul in this game. But the market read seems to be completely disagreeing with me on this, but I would only look towards DePaul in this one. They're up from Pick'em to 1. I would go money line on it if I was going to do it. 62% of tickets are on DePaul, 72% of the cash on Creighton. So the money is saying Creighton, but yeah, again, I don't agree with that. I would lean DePaul. ACC Network, 9 p.m., Wake Forest at Georgia Tech. I think Wake is in a bit of a difficult spot here because they just played Louisville pretty close at home. That game, they lost by 8, but they were in that game almost right to the end. So that was a big performance from Wake against a ranked Louisville team. Now they're going to go back out on the road. Seems like a difficult spot to me. They do have Stanford up next, which isn't really a huge deal, but at the very least, I think it's kind of a hangover spot for Wake here. Georgia Tech coming to this game of a blowout loss, so they are having to travel cross-country here. They got blown out at Stanford. They played 2 games in California. Now they're coming back home from that, so I don't love jumping on teams that are traveling cross-country like that, but I think Wake is in the worst spot here off that huge performance, so I would lean towards Georgia Tech in this one, but the money, again, looks like it's not agreeing with me. 86% of tickets, only 50% of the cash on Georgia Tech. They look like a public side, a dreaded public home underdog. But I lean towards them in this game, man. I don't understand the market percentages in that one, to be honest. I would take the points with Georgia Tech. Market seems to totally disagree. Do with that what you want. ESPNU at 9 p.m. We have Stanford at BC. This is a really strange game. Stanford is having to travel cross-country and go to an unfamiliar venue, which is not the greatest situation to be in for a team like Stanford. They're coming off a blowout win over Georgia Tech, but that was an easy win. Georgia Tech kind of sucks, and Stanford had lost 5 games in a row prior to that, so they do have momentum now coming into this one, so that's a positive for them. And BC is coming off a tough game, man, where they almost pulled off an upset against Miami at home, only losing by 6 as big underdogs. So BC, I think, is in the worst spot here, even though they're staying at home. So, yeah, BC does have a travel advantage here and a familiarity edge with the venue. But spot-wise, I think Stanford is probably the way to look in this one. Stanford's only laying 2.5, though, so it does look too easy to play Stanford in this game. But I probably lean to Stanford based on the spot. 92% of tickets, 94% of the cash on Stanford. Not a game I want to get involved in at all, though. Could be ugly. It's a low-scoring game, too. ESPN2, 9 p.m., Tennessee at Mississippi State. Tennessee just lost again to Kentucky. Brutal, brutal loss for Tennessee, man. They had Kentucky completely on the ropes. I thought Tennessee would bounce back and win that game after they lost at home as a pretty big favorite to Kentucky. Seemed like it was going to be a spot where Tennessee was going to show up and win that game. And it looked like they had the game won, and they blew it. So now they're coming off a big rivalry game where they lost the game, lost a 4-game win streak as well. Second straight road game, going to play a pretty weak Mississippi State team. I don't like the spot for Tennessee here. Mississippi State coming off a blowout loss, staying at home. Got blown out by a pretty decent Arkansas team in their last game. I think I would have to lean towards Mississippi State in this one, even though I don't believe Tennessee has a big game up next or anything. They're a public side. They're laying 7.5 down to 7 now. 87% of tickets and 86% of the cash, on Tennessee. So they look like a very public side with less of the money on them. I would take the points with Mississippi State in that one, like I said. Total fairly low in the 140s as well. Tennessee, we know they play slow. They focus on defense, so laying points on the road, not really something you usually want to do with them. So that's what I think about that game. SEC Network at 9 p.m. Missouri at Texas A&M. Missouri, they're a tournament bubble team, man. And I forgot to put them in my bracketology. I should have put them on the first 4 out, I believe. And I completely forgot about them, so I apologize. I'll have to fix that. Missouri, they're coming off an easy win over South Carolina. They're playing a third road game in 4 games, but I don't think they're going to overlook Texas A&M, though. So they're coming into this with momentum. The travel spot's a little difficult for them, but it's interesting because both of these teams are actually former Big 12 teams. This is, for me, I'm a little bit old. This is like a Big 12 matchup to me. But I think they will show up because Texas A&M's been leading the SEC standing-wise most of the season. Texas A&M may show up as well. I mean, they're staying at home. They got blown out in their last game by Florida. But maybe that game kind of gave them a little bit of a reality check. And they do have Vandy coming up on Saturday, so maybe a bit of a look ahead there. I probably lean to Missouri in this one, but not really a strong opinion. It does look like the market does agree with that. 83% of tickets, only 77% of the cash on A&M, so they're a pretty public side. And again, I think you're probably not getting much line value with Texas A&M because everybody thinks they're better than they are based on their record. They're not as good as their record makes them appear. 6.5-point favor for Texas A&M in that one, but I probably lean to Missouri. Liberty at New Mexico State. The thing that jumps out about this one is Liberty has this great record, 3 losses on the season, undefeated in conference. New Mexico State's not even at 500 and have a horrible conference record, and yet they're only a 3.5-point underdog in this game. This game looks so easy to play Liberty, man, but I keep pointing out how New Mexico State is an unbelievably unlucky team. For some reason, they foul a lot or they get charged with a lot of fouls. Like, they're one of the teams that's close to the top in the country in opponent free throw attempts against them. I don't know what the deal is, but I think I would have to lean to New Mexico State in this one because it looks so easy to play Liberty. But there just isn't really a spot for it. And if Liberty wins this conference and has a really pretty record, I think they're going to be a public darling in the tournament. But this conference is ass. Like, Liberty, they got absolutely wasted in the first round of the tournament last year, and that might happen again this year. If and when that does happen, we'll see. But Liberty is coming off a decent win over Missouri State, who is close to the top of the conference there. Playing New Mexico State here, I don't believe they played yet this year. Oh, no, they did. My mistake. Liberty actually only beat them by 2. So that is interesting. So Liberty might actually take them seriously because Liberty was an 8.5-point favorite at home against them and only beat them by 2. So there is that. So situationally, maybe Liberty will show up for the game, but they are playing a third road game in 4 games. Liberty is a Virginia school, though, and they're having to go to New Mexico for this. The Conference USA sets up some weird travel spots, man, and New Mexico State's coming off a pretty gross loss in a third straight road game against UTEP. It was not good at all. New Mexico State is better than UTEP, even though the records don't really make it look that way. Now New Mexico State back home, and the last couple times they were at home, they had some embarrassing losses. They've been awful at home, so I don't know if we really want to jump into New Mexico State at home, but they're getting points. And, yeah, it just looks way too easy to play Liberty. So, yeah, I would lean to New Mexico State. Liberty's up from 3 to 3.5 with juice. You might even get 4 on this. 67% of tickets, 88% of the cash on New Mexico State. Total in the 140s is pretty low as well. So I like New Mexico State in that one. In the West Coast Conference, as we get into the degenerate hours, and I still have to do a ton of NBA, man. Oh, man. Seattle at Santa Clara. This is a good game, although Santa Clara is a significantly better team. Although Seattle's played okay in the conference. Seattle's coming off kind of an ugly loss where I give it a loser on that one. I thought it made sense to fade Portland off their monumental upset of Gonzaga. Seattle blew the game. They had the game in hand, and they blew it. Very low-scoring game. Now, a fourth road game in 5 games for Seattle, going to Santa Clara. They should show up for the game, but it's not exactly the greatest spot for them. Seattle's a very imbalanced team, by the way. They have a horrible offense and a really good defense. Santa Clara, I believe, is the more balanced team, and they are the better team. They're coming back home off of not playing that well at Washington State. The big problem for Santa Clara is they got Gonzaga on deck, so they may be looking ahead to that game. And I don't believe they play Seattle otherwise this year. I think this is their only game against Seattle this year, but the problem with Santa Clara, that Gonzaga game is a huge look ahead because they're tied with Gonzaga atop the standings. So that's the worry with Santa Clara coming into this one. And Seattle is coming off a disgusting loss. So, I would probably actually take the points with Seattle in this one. Santa Clara laying 13 points is pretty wild, man. The Santa Clara team, they're for real. I think they might even actually be better than St. Mary's, although we'll see. But I would like to see Santa Clara get into the tournament, man, because it hasn't happened in who knows how long. Probably the Steve Nash days or whatever. 85% of the tickets are on Seattle, though, and 79% of the cash on Santa Clara. So the market read is saying Santa Clara pretty strongly there, but I kind of disagree with it. Then we have a couple of TV games late in the Mountain West. One of them, New Mexico at Grand Canyon on Fox Sports 1. This is a bit of a revenge spot because New Mexico already beat Grand Canyon at home by 23, so they might not take Grand Canyon that seriously. And New Mexico is coming off a big game against Boise, although New Mexico did lose at home, and they were like a 5.5 point favorite probably in that one. But they lost the game to a decent Boise team. But Grand Canyon is still above Boise in the standings, so I don't know. Maybe they pay attention to Grand Canyon, but it will be a weird venue because New Mexico, these teams in the Mountain West are not used to playing at Grand Canyon because they're new to the conference. Grand Canyon's been pretty good at home. I believe they might be undefeated at home in conference. No, they lost to Colorado State. That's weird. But I think that's their only conference home loss. I think they've won all their other conference home games. They're coming off an ugly loss at UNLV. They're not a great team, UNLV. Grand Canyon coming back home here where they've had a pretty significant home advantage this year. Might be better for them in the revenge spot. I would lean to Grand Canyon in this game if I was going to play it. It would probably be money line Grand Canyon. They're up from 1-1 with juice here. 89% of tickets, 96% of the cash on Grand Canyon. So the money is saying Grand Canyon. I don't disagree with it. And then finally, Big Ten Network, Penn State at Washington. And then I got to take a little bit of a break and then do the NBA. Huge basketball board today, man. This game is not that interesting. Penn State is coming off a close call against USC. Now they're having to go to the West Coast for the first and probably only time this year. Weird travel spot for Penn State and coming off a big performance against USC. Don't know what they're going to have left going on the road to Washington, having to cross time zones. Washington's coming off a big game themselves, although they're staying in the Pacific time zone, but they had a big game against UCLA and fell just short against UCLA. So the spot's not exactly great for Washington either, but I think it is a pretty bad spot for Penn State, though. I'd probably lay it with Washington in this game. Public usually doesn't love laying points with teams that are sitting at 500 and have ugly records like that, but that's probably what I would do in this one. Washington is up from 12 to 12.5, 67% of tickets, 69% of the cash on Washington. It looks like some of the real money might be coming in on Washington in that game. It looks very difficult to do it, but I do think Washington's a bit of an underrated team right now, and Penn State is ass. And with both teams being in kind of questionable spots, Washington does have the location edge here and travel edge, of course, so I'd probably lay it with Washington. All right, I'm going to have 4 NBA plays, man. We have, I think, 14 NBA games on the board today, which is insane. It's before we go into the All-Star break, there are 3 more NBA games tomorrow, but we have the All-Star break. It's going to be a nice break for me during the All-Star break when we're also in the hockey Olympic break. It's going to be all college basketball for me. So it'll be a nice break for me. But I got to come back. I'm going to talk about NBA. Hopefully it won't take that long. But this is a shit ton of NBA games, man. So I will be back in a second. I don't know. You can see the board. I can't really show the whole board unless I can zoom out again if you want. If you want to try to see the whole NBA board. Yeah, there we go. Squint your eyes. All right. But I will be back in a second. You try to guess which games I'm on. UNLV, what's up, man? Thanks for hanging out. I'll be right back, and I'll talk about NBA. And then my show's going to end right at the time we're going to have lunch. So I'm going to get some more water real quick, too. I'll be back in a second. All right, let's do this. NBA, I'm going to have 4 plays in the NBA here. Maybe I'm spreading myself too thin, but I don't know. We have 14 games. NBA has been one of my best sports, so, I'm doing it. Hopefully we're going to get some wins out of it here, man. We're going to be on the first game up, so let's do this. Best bets, we're going to be on the Atlanta Hawks. I almost said the Falcons. The Hawks plus 5.5 against Charlotte. I know we're going to fade Charlotte here, but Charlotte, their win streak has ended, man. And what have I been saying? When teams lose win streaks like this, Charlotte had won, I don't know what this was, 8 games in a row maybe, 9, whatever it was. They lost a huge win streak, and a lot of times when a team loses a win streak like that, they're going to be hung over into the next game. We got to keep in mind that we do have the All-Star break coming up, so the look-ahead spots don't matter as much. They do have Houston on deck, which would be a huge look ahead. But I don't know if I think the look aheads matter less in a spot like this, but I still like this spot because Charlotte lost a huge win streak. So again, you can essentially lose the same game twice when that happens. And they lost it in a big game against Detroit, man, where Charlotte played pretty competitively against a really good Detroit team and lost the game still. So I think they're going to be hung over coming into this game, and it's a quick road revenge angle for Atlanta because Atlanta lost at home to Charlotte the game before that, and yes, I know I gave out a loser on Atlanta in that game, and Atlanta did play Charlotte close and almost won the game. The 7-point final wasn't exactly indicative of what happened in that game. The game was within 1 or 2 points, I think, pretty late in that game. I'm kind of pissed about it. But Charlotte was in a bad spot in that one. They'd beaten Houston on the road prior to that. They had Detroit on deck. I thought it was a sandwich spot. But now that they beat Atlanta in that game, then they took that really difficult loss to Detroit in a close game. Yeah, I just see them not having it coming into this game, man. I think Atlanta will be the team to make the adjustments here. The 5.5 line, it seems a little, I don't know. I guess it's about right because it was 2 on the road. You don't get a whole lot for home court in NBA. You get like 1.5 maybe probably. So I think the line is, I guess, probably about right for a Charlotte home game here. But I expect Atlanta to be the team that makes the adjustments off of that. So this is kind of a zigzag spot, plus the fact that it's a big hangover spot for Charlotte. And Atlanta's coming off a blowout loss. They were in Minnesota, and they got absolutely drilled at Minnesota. So I think they're going to show up. They do not want to go into the All-Star break on a note like that, man. And we'll talk about teams coming out of the All-Star break. teams usually do better coming out of a break like that if they went into the break doing poorly, but teams still don't want to, you know what I mean? Like, you want to get that win, try to at least before you go into the All-Star break. So we will be on Atlanta in this one. And if we look at what happened in this game where they lost that other time to Charlotte, I mean, both teams shot really well in the game from three at the very least, so that was kind of a wash. Charlotte did massively out-rebound Atlanta, so that does worry me a little bit that Charlotte was way better on the rebounding side. But all that being said, I think it's a spot to grab the Hawks here. Hornets did drop a little bit from the 5.5 to a 5 now, although we see 59% of tickets, 78% of the cash on the Hornets. I don't know if the market read is going to wind up looking like that or not. I guess we'll find out, but it looks like there was some initial drop on the Hornets here. And this one, I haven't really looked at the personnel because these teams, I don't even know if it matters that much who's in and who's out in some of these games, and I don't know. But we'll see. I mean, Kobe White just still hasn't played for the Hornets, so I don't think that's a big deal. I know the Hawks are kind of in flux right now after making some deals towards the deadline as well. But, yeah, I like the Hawks in that one to make the adjustments and cover in that one. That's the first play. Next game up is another play for me. And, yeah, we're getting real ugly with this one. But we are going to take the Washington Wizards again, plus 18. I believe they went 1-1 when we tried to take them as huge underdogs the last couple of times. We're doing it again. Washington's coming off a blowout loss at home to Miami, 132 to 101. And, oh, yeah, what happened the last time they lost 132 to 101 at home, which I know that one was a loser for me against the Knicks. What happened after that, though? I gave out a play on them against Detroit, and what did they do? They went to Detroit and won outright. So this Washington Wizards team has been zigzagging all over the place, but it's been kind of a predictable zigzag where they get their ass handed to them one game, and then they play really well in the next game. So if that trend kind of continues, losing by the exact same score at home again, going out on the road again, just like they did against Detroit. Cleveland also pretty close to Detroit. This looks like a very, very similar spot to that. Yeah, and I think we were actually getting fewer points against Detroit, too, which is insane to think about. We were getting 16.5 in that one. We're getting 18 against Cleveland, and I'm not sure that Cleveland is the better team over Detroit, man. I know I've been saying I don't think Detroit is necessarily the best team in the East, but we're getting more points in this one in a similar spot against a team that's questionable, that's debatably not even as good. So I think we're definitely getting some line value here as well. And for Cleveland, the spot is awful. Cleveland's returning home from a road trip. And what do I always say? I love fading teams returning home from road trips. They've been on the road since January 30th. And when teams have been on a long road trip like this, and they return home, especially when they're about to go into a break and they're playing a horrible Washington team, I don't really see them having much focus at all, man. Generally, when a team returns home from a road trip, they don't have a lot of focus because they got to get back to family life and whatever. When you're playing a total ass team and you're about to go into the All-Star break, I could see this being a spot where they really just don't pay attention. And they're coming off a big win on Monday night against Denver, where I said I liked Cleveland in that game. They were able to come back and win that game. Denver was a small favorite in that one as well. But, yeah, if you look at how this game went, Denver was winning the majority of the game, and Cleveland made a huge comeback and won the game. That was a big win in elevation for Cleveland. Now they're coming out of that. This is a horrible, horrible spot for Cleveland. I think it's a spot where you will get an effort out of the Wizards here. We'll see what happens with the new pieces that the Wizards have after the trade deadline. Don't know if it's really going to matter. I don't really care who's in there for the Wizards. So 59% of the tickets are on the Cavs, 53% of the cash coming back on the side of the Wizards. I agree with it, even though I know we got a really high total here at 240, really high for an NBA game. Expecting not a lot of defense in this one, but again, I still like it, man. I think horrible spot for Cleveland. We'll take the Wizards in that one. All right, now we'll get to some games where I don't have as strong of an opinion. Milwaukee at Orlando. And keeping in mind, there are a couple teams that are playing tomorrow, and Milwaukee is one of them. Milwaukee, Portland, and Utah, I believe, all play today, and they're all playing tomorrow as well. So just something to keep in mind. But this is also a potential zigzag spot that we have to be aware of. Orlando just beat Milwaukee on Monday in the same place in Orlando, and they beat them by almost 20 points. So when that happens, usually there's a bit of an outlier situation going on. A lot of times the team on the losing end of it will have some positive regression in the next game. Although in this game, there wasn't. Well, Orlando got to the free throw line more. Yeah, Milwaukee had 20 turnovers. Yeah, Orlando won the rebounding battle, but really that turnover margin is a big reason why the game was the way that it was. So if Milwaukee could clean up the turnovers, they might be able to zigzag into this one. Orlando, they might not care about beating Milwaukee again. I think you're getting more line value on the Bucks now, but I think part of it is because I think Franz Wagner is actually going to come back. He's not on the injury report, and he didn't play in the other game against Milwaukee, so I think he is coming back in this game, he's the second best player for Orlando. So I think that might be the reason why Orlando's a 10-point favorite when I think they were 8.5 in the prior game. But you know what I talk about, the reverse injured player spot as well. So when that comes into play and you have one of your best players come back, sometimes the line over adjusts to it and the team has to adjust to him being back. Team has to fit into their new roles again, whatever. He has to adjust to being back out there in a real game. So sometimes it doesn't work right away. So there are a lot of reasons to look towards Milwaukee in this game, in my opinion, and that is probably the way I lean. I think I would take the points with Milwaukee, but Milwaukee does have that game tomorrow against Oklahoma City on Amazon Prime, and, if Milwaukee's kind of a dead team now and they're paying attention to any games, that might be the game that they pay more attention to than this one. So that's one concern that I have. And the market read is saying that Orlando here, but I would probably still need to take the points with Milwaukee here. 71% of tickets, 83% of the cash on the Magic. So it does look like the money is on that side, but I think I lean to the Bucks there. That one, not a play for me. Chicago at Boston. Chicago just beat Boston not that long ago. My Boston Celtics. They lost in Chicago back on January 24th. So the Celtics, I think they're likely to take this game seriously, man, because I know the Celtics and what they do with Joe Mazzulla. They bounce back well against teams that beat them in the prior game usually, and they bounce back well from disgusting losses pretty well, and the Celtics are in both of those spots here. Chicago, they're going to be looking for a win, sure. I mean, they'll be looking to try to play in this game at Boston for sure, but the Celtics are clearly the better team, and if you're going to get the better team actually with focus, I think the Celtics are probably the right side here. Celtics are staying at home. Like I said, they got absolutely embarrassed at home by the Knicks. I know it broke a 5-game losing streak for them, and sometimes if you lose a 5-game winning streak, if you lose a winning streak, yeah, sometimes it'll hang you over into the next game, but because they just lost to Chicago, because that loss was so bad against the Knicks, losing by whatever that was, I thought it was almost 20, but it was actually 22. I think I would have to lean to the Celtics here in this one. Hopefully the Celtics just win the game for my rooting purposes. They're a huge favorite, up from 12.5 to 13.5. It looks like the money's disagreeing with me, though. 59% of tickets and 54% of the cash on the Celtics. But I would lean Celtics in that game, knowing how they respond to losses, but it's not a play for me, and the market seems to disagree. Next game, more best bets. This one, yeah, we're going to try to Nets whisper here, but in this one, we're going to lay points with the Nets. When would we ever think that would be the case? But laying points with the Nets was the right side the other night, man. These Nets, they can cover as a favorite against some of the worst teams. Indiana's a really bad team, and Indiana's terrible on the road. They only have 3 road wins. And Indiana's in a god-awful spot here, and I know that probably is jacking the line up a little bit on Brooklyn. I understand that, but I don't even know if it's enough, man. We're going to play the spot here on this one. You know me, I'm all about the spot. You got to pay attention to the number a little bit, but in this one, yeah, I still think it's worth doing. Hopefully we can get there with this one, but the spot is horrible, and yes, I know because of the spot, because Indiana played a huge game last night, yeah, that's jacking the number up a little bit on the side of the Nets. They're up from 3.5 to 5 here now. You might be able to get 4.5 on this. It looks like some of the money's coming back on the Pacers, so I think I would probably wait on this game and see if you can get a better number on the Nets here. I know it's a low total, too. These teams are just ass, so whatever, but it's still an NBA game. Laying this many points is not that many. 51% of tickets, 75% of the cash on the Pacers, but I don't agree with it. I don't see how you could be on the side of the Pacers here after what they just did last night. that was a monster win against the Knicks last night, man. And you saw my analysis. That was one of the plays on my card last night. Horrible spot for the Knicks after that really, really good win against the Celtics. And the Knicks had what do they have? I believe they had the 76ers on deck. Is that what it was? Yeah, which is tonight, yeah. So the Knicks were in a major sandwich spot. So, yeah, Indiana caught them, but Indiana had to go into overtime and pulled off the huge upset. So I just don't know what they're going to have left here, man. I know they're staying in New York City, so technically it's not a third game in 4 days or fourth game in 6 days, all in different cities because they're staying in New York, but it is still a back-to-back in 2 different arenas. It is still a major letdown spot. It is still a third game in 4 days in different arenas, a fourth game in 6 days in different arenas. So it's still pretty similar to that, man. And Brooklyn's staying at home with a little bit of momentum here, man. They covered as a favorite against Washington, who is ass, which, Indiana I don't think is that much better than Washington. So Brooklyn, I think, were like 6-point favorites in that game and won. And then they beat Chicago on Monday. So Brooklyn, they got a little bit of momentum here, man. I think they might continue to play all right coming into the break here. They're trying to play better here. I like it. Horrible spot for the Pacers mostly, so we'll be on Brooklyn minus the points in that one. I don't like fading the market read, man, which we're doing in a couple of these games, but 3 of them so far today. But that's the way that it is. ESPN doubleheader. The first game up is a pretty interesting one with the Knicks and Philadelphia. The Knicks are on a back-to-back and played overtime last night, which isn't exactly the greatest thing, although Anunoby didn't play, and I believe Robinson didn't play either. So Anunoby at least got rest, and I assume he will play in this game against Philly. I'm assuming Embiid is going to play too, although, of course, Embiid, he's game-time decision every single game, but this is a huge ESPN game against the Knicks, so I expect Embiid to be out there. And, of course, Paul George is suspended for the Sixers right now. Knicks coming off that gross loss yesterday. They are on a back-to-back. They are having to travel, too, to Philly. Not a huge travel leg, but still, they're having to travel. But Philadelphia, they're probably in the worst spot here, man, even though the Knicks are on the back-to-back and have a little bit of a travel spot. Look at Philadelphia. They've been on the road since February 2nd, so over a week, and they went out to the Pacific Coast. They had a winning road trip out there, went 3-2 on the road trip. Yeah, they got absolutely torched in their last game at Portland, which was a win for me on Portland on Monday. But still, they're returning home from a road trip. And I talk about them when a team returns home from a road trip. They got to cross all these time zones. It can take a lot out of them. They can get distracted by having to get back to home life. They should be focused when they're hosting an ESPN game against the Knicks, but I never want to be on a team returning home from a road trip, man. That's just the way that it is. So I think I have to lean to the Knicks in this game for those reasons. The money is not agreeing with me. The Sixers flipped from a 2-point dog to a 2-point favorite here, and I don't know exactly what caused that line move. It's still pretty much in the range of picking the winner, but I don't know if that's because Anunoby, it's announced that, no, Anunoby is playing, so I don't know why would the line move towards the Sixers, unless it was just some announcement that Embiid is playing. I don't know. I don't get it. But we have 61% of tickets on the Knicks, 55% of the cash on the Sixers. I don't really like it, man. I know the Knicks are on the back-to-back. Maybe the line is skewed a little bit towards the Sixers because the Knicks are on the back-to-back. I think the Knicks are certainly the better of these 2 teams. So the Sixers basically being lined like they're almost equal with the Knicks, there's probably a little bit of line value on the Knicks, but again, some of it is because of the situation. But they did have a horrible loss yesterday, so that plus the Sixers returning home from a road trip, I think I would have to lean Knicks in that game, but not a play for me. Detroit at Toronto. Detroit coming off beating Charlotte, off of beating the Knicks, too. So a couple of decent wins there. Now they're having to go up to Toronto. They have the Knicks again, but that's not until after the break. So I don't know if that's really a look-ahead spot there. But coming off ending Charlotte's long run like that, man, it could be a situation where it's a little bit tricky for Detroit coming into this one. Although I know Toronto's not a very good home team, though. Toronto is staying at home, I think, here. Yeah, they are. They've been at home for a long time. They're playing a 5th straight home game. Don't see them overlooking Detroit here. They have a couple of days of rest here. which maybe sometimes isn't good when you're winning games, but I think I'd have to lean to the Raptors in this one. You're getting them as an underdog at home as well. I know they're not good at home, but at least they're an underdog here. Pistons are a 1.5-point favorite. 69% of tickets, 94% of the cash on the Raptors. I'll agree with it, but not a strong opinion from me on that one. Clippers at Houston. This is a potential zigzag spot, but maybe less of one than maybe the Bucks game because the game wasn't an outlier. They played yesterday at the same teams, same location in Houston. I believe Houston were 7.5-point favorites in this one. No, they were 9.5. My mistake. And the Clippers lost by 7. So the game did land right near the number in this one. So it wasn't really an outlier as far as the score. Looking at what happened in the game, though, that's where it gets a little bit more interesting because the Clippers were horrible from the free throw line, but the real outlier here is Houston was 50% from three-point range, which is crazy. So there should be some regression there. They had an edge of 50% to 27% from three-point range. That is a big disparity, man. And the Clippers actually had more field goal attempts in the game and actually out-rebounded Houston. Houston actually lost the turnover battle, too. So really the threes are the reason why Houston won that game. So that actually was an outlier. So maybe there actually is some potential to zigzag this thing because the Clippers are actually better in that game than it appears. And because of that result, I think they're actually getting a couple more points in this one maybe. Where is this game? Where are we at? Rockets, where are you? No, it's about the same. It's up a little bit. It's at 9, I think. Well, yeah, it's 9.5. It's about the same as yesterday. 54% of tickets, 97% of the cash on the Rockets. It's a crazy low total at 208.5. Very low for an NBA game. Money coming in on the Rockets, but I don't agree. I would lean Clippers in this game if I was going to play it because I think there is that room for that three-point variance to just completely change coming into this game. So I would lean to the Clippers in this one, man. I don't get what's going on with that number. Always have to look at the personnel in these basketball games. Sometimes I forget to do so. There isn't really a whole lot going on. The injuries are all just kind of what we already knew for those two teams, so there's not much going on there. Portland at Minnesota. Portland's on a nice run here, but they are having to travel across time zones here to Minnesota, and then they have to go back and play Utah tomorrow. That spot is going to be a weird spot, man. If Portland plays really well tonight, we might be looking at fading them tomorrow and going with Utah tomorrow. Because that's going to be a weird spot, having to go from Minnesota to Utah. Although I think Utah is playing tonight as well. But that is going to be a weird spot. Portland, you got to think, will show up for a big game against Minnesota. But they are coming off a very satisfying win against Philadelphia. But sometimes when you go out on the road, you carry that momentum with you. Minnesota is coming off a big blowout. Well, not a big win, but a blowout win over Atlanta. Staying at home. Don't know if they're really going to overlook Portland or not here. This is a difficult game to handicap. It's just not a strong situation, really, for me to figure out in this game. There isn't one. I mean, T-Wolves dropped from 7 to 5 for some reason, though, so they're not laying that many points. It actually looks way too easy to lay the points with the T-Wolves here. 74% of tickets, 75% of the cash on the T-Wolves. They're going to be a public side. That difference of 1% I don't think really matters that much in the market read there. I think I would probably lean to taking the points with Portland in this one, but I don't know what's going on with why the number dropped like that. Let me see. What are the injuries we got going on here? Anthony Edwards is a game-time decision. He's got an illness. So I don't know if they're going to let him rest going into the All-Star break or not. So that's something you got to pay attention to. Whether Edwards plays or not will actually have an impact on the game, of course. Everything else seems like it's not really a big deal as far as the personnel in that game. Miami at New Orleans. First of all, this line looks really ridiculous. How could New Orleans be a favorite against the Heat, right? Well, the Heat are bad on the road. They're below 500 on the road at least, but New Orleans having such a hideous record, them being a favorite looks crazy in this game. They're down from 1.5 to 1. 67% of tickets and 79% of the cash on the Heat. So the Heat look like they're getting the money, although I think they're going to be a public side too. Maybe the Heat will show up here, though, because they did lose to Utah on Monday, which was a bad loss for Miami. They were Miami was not a heavy favorite in that game. I think they had dropped to about a 5.5-point favorite when the game went off. I don't know why they dropped like that, because Adebayo definitely still played in that game. I don't know if Hero was in and then out of the lineup. I don't know what happened in that game, but Miami was going to be like a 9-point favorite, and they wound up going off 5.5. Either way, it was a pretty bad home loss, though, to Utah. Now, they are playing a third game in 4 days, all in different cities, though, and a fourth game in 6 days, all in different cities, which doesn't make it that easy. And I don't know if they're really going to have a ton of attention here in this game against New Orleans, but coming off a home loss to Utah might make you more focused than you normally would be. New Orleans returned home from a road trip in their last game, and they won anyway in a blowout against Sacramento. Now they're just staying at home off of that. I don't know what we want to do with this game, to be honest, man. I mean, it looks way too easy to play Miami, although the situation, I mean, if you're going to get the better team and they're actually going to show up, which Miami is certainly the better team, and they might show up because they had that loss to Utah. I guess I might have to slightly lean to Miami in this one, but I don't want anything to do with it. It looks like Hero is still out until after the break. I don't even know if he actually even came back, man. He did not. So he's still been out for a long time. So they're going to wait until after the All-Star break with him. We're going to see what happens with everything that's going on here, man. But, yeah, I guess I would still slightly lean to the Heat there, though. Oklahoma City at Phoenix. I do still have one more play in one of the later games here. It's not this one. Oklahoma City just upset the Lakers on the road. Was it an up? No, it wasn't up. What am I saying? That's not an upset. What am I saying? They beat the Lakers on the road. I thought Oklahoma City would win and cover, and they actually did. Oklahoma City, I think, was about a 7-point favorite in that game. It was a weird game, though, because it was no SGA for OKC and no Luka for LA. Oklahoma City got the win. Still a big win when you beat the Lakers, though. Will they overlook Phoenix, though? I don't know. I mean, they got Milwaukee tomorrow, but that's not a big deal. So Oklahoma City, I forgot they're the other team playing today that plays tomorrow. I guess there are 4 teams playing today that play tomorrow. And they're playing each other, Milwaukee, OKC, Portland, and Utah. Anyway, I don't think OKC will be looking ahead to that, though. It's just a matter of are they going to be in a letdown off of beating the Lakers? And maybe they won't be, because the Suns have been a pretty good team this year too. Maybe the Suns will attract their attention. The Suns are on a back-to-back, but they had a kind of easy win yesterday against Dallas, not traveling anywhere. They're staying at home. They've been at home for a long time, so the spot's not exactly bad for the Suns here. Let's see. Where's the game? The money is coming in on the Suns. The Thunder are up from 6.5 to 7.5 here. 54% of tickets on the Thunder. SGA is not playing in this game, by the way. They're holding him out through the All-Star break here, which probably means he's not going to play in the All-Star game either, even though I'm sure he is named to the All-Star team or whatever. He's probably going to sit it out. 67% of the cash coming in on the Suns. I'll agree with it. I would lean to the Suns in that game. I think there is that letdown component for Oklahoma City there. Phoenix has had a couple of injuries to maybe be aware of, too. Grayson Allen has been out. He's going to be out, I guess, through the All-Star break as well. But, I don't know. He is a gray son at this point. I mean, he's an old dude at this point, so I don't know how big that really is for Phoenix. Sacramento at Utah. So many NBA games today, man. Utah is playing tomorrow. Sacramento isn't. Sacramento's on this awful losing streak, man. They've lost 13 games in a row. Things are not going well for Sacramento, man. I think Sabonis has been hurt. Levine, I think, has been hurt. So we got to look and see who's even playing for Sacramento here. Levine is out. Russell Westbrook is out. Yeah, they're going to be out through the All-Star break. Monk is out. Sabonis is out. Hunter, dude, like all the best players for the Kings are out. It's just crazy how many of their players are out right now through the All-Star break. So Sacramento's basically playing with nobody in this game. They'll try to bounce back from an absolute blowout loss, though. And Utah is coming off a nice upset of Miami, and they're returning home from a road trip. So the spot is not good for Utah. Utah has been on the road since February 1st, and they're coming back home from that and pulling off an upset at Miami in the last game. And they play Portland tomorrow, and Portland might draw more of your attention than Sacramento will. Are you really going to pay attention to this Sacramento team with literally nobody in their lineup, playing a bunch of nobodies? Sacramento, no. I think I have to lean to Sacramento in this game, man. That's just, the way that it is. Utah's returning home from a road trip. And Sacramento's coming off all these blowout losses here. The return home spot, what I always say, teams get distracted when they return home from the road. They just pulled off an upset in their last game. I don't think there's any way they're going to pay attention to a Kings team with nobody in the lineup. The money is coming in on the Kings. We have the Jazz down from 7 to 6 here. I don't think we're going to see the key number 7 here, though. 66% of tickets on the Jazz, 58% of the cash on the Kings. Money is coming in on the Kings. I agree with the Kings. Actually, this was my other play. Should it actually be a play, though? Now that I know that Sacramento has nobody in their lineup. Hold on. How many of these guys played in the last game for... I almost said how many of these gays. Nope, that's not what I was trying to say. How many of these guys even played for the Kings in the last game? None of them did. Oh, no, Westbrook did, but he only played 21 minutes. But the rest of the guys didn't. So the rest of these guys were already out for Sacramento in that game. So it's not a huge difference. Like Murray, Sabonis, Monk, and Levine all were out anyway for that game, and they got blown out. Fuck it. Whoops, let's do it. Sacramento plus the points in this game. Maybe spreading myself thin tonight, man, but that's the way that it is. We'll be on Sacramento plus the points in that one. I know how ugly that one looks, but that's what we're going to do. Memphis at Denver. Memphis coming off a nice performance where they fell just short at Golden State, although it might have been Golden State without Curry. But still, if you're this Memphis team, it's in rebuild mode, and you go into Golden State and you play competitively, good performance from Memphis, man. Now they have to go into elevation and play Denver. Don't love how that sets up for Memphis, although I guess they should at least show up with some effort for Denver here. Denver's coming off a more difficult game where they had Cleveland pretty much. I think they had the game pretty much won against Cleveland, and Cleveland came back and won the game. So the spot might be a little bit worse for Denver, maybe, coming off of that, because that was a big game for Denver. Both teams are in bad spots in this one, so I want nothing to really do with this one. The Nuggets are laying 13.5. They have 70% of tickets and 80% of the cash on them. I don't know, man. This is a game that I will completely stay away from, but the money is saying to lay the points with the Nuggets. I kind of, I don't even know. I don't even know if I want to say I agree with it. I mean, Memphis did almost pull off that upset. How big of an upset would that have been at Golden State? Let me see. 9.5. Yeah, that's pretty significant. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll agree and lean towards Denver in that one, but I have no read on that. And then the 10 p.m. game on ESPN is San Antonio at Golden State here. We got to see who's playing in this game. Golden State's had a lot of injuries to look at. Curry is still out. He's not coming back through the All-Star break. And, of course, we know Butler's out for the season. So we have those injuries to look at for the Golden State side, which is part of the reason why the Spurs are laying a ton of points here. The Spurs coming into this one off a nice win on the road against the Lakers yesterday, and they pummeled the Lakers yesterday. So on a back-to-back, having to travel up to the Bay Area off a very satisfying blowout win over the Lakers. I think Luka was still out of that game, though. Let me make sure of that. Still, it's a big deal when you beat the Lakers either way, though. Yeah, Luka did not play in that game. Still a huge deal, though, when you beat the Lakers like that and you absolutely crush them. So San Antonio might not pay attention to this Golden State mash unit here on a back-to-back coming off that. And Golden State just almost lost to Memphis as big favorites. So the only way that I could look at this game is to look at Golden State in this one. The Spurs are up from 5.5 to 8, I think because of the Warriors' injuries. 87% of tickets, 89% of the cash on the Spurs. I could only grab the points of the Warriors in this one. And I think if I was going to play a game, it might be that one, grabbing the points of the Warriors. But that's going to do it, man. Finally, show ending. My plays today one more time. College basketball, Western Carolina minus the points. Georgia plus the points. VMI plus the points. UAB plus the points. NBA, Atlanta plus the points. Washington plus the points. Brooklyn minus the points. And Sacramento plus the points. That's going to be a real hideous one, man. That's going to do it. Learn to Toad on Twitter. You can subscribe to me there, too. Learn to Toad on Instagram. Like, subscribe. Give me good comments on the channel here on Toad Stool Sports. Of course, listen on audio. Give me good reviews on audio on Apple and Spotify. Got to boost this thing up. Covered in Uke is my Uke channel on YouTube. You can check that out. Patreon.com/LearnToToad if you want to throw me some support and get some bonus Uke stuff there. I know I got to get the other Uke stuff that I've done recently up there. Gonna do it. Got to update the YouTube once again as well with my latest cover, the 3 Doors Down tribute that I did. Loser Cast, we had a new episode last night. You can go check that out. I think it was a pretty funny episode. You go check that out. My loser of choice this week was a bit off the beaten path, although it was a recent news story. It was a dude who has not even been named. We're calling him French artillery shell butt plug guy is my loser of the week. So you can go check that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch the episode. That's going to do it. I'll be back tomorrow, which it'll be a much lighter board tomorrow. We see there's not much NBA going on. There's no NHL. And it's the junk college basketball board on Thursday with the small conferences being played. But that's going to do it. Some big games tonight. Hopefully we can get some wins tonight, too. We have a lot of plays tonight. Peace for now, man.